Ladies and gentlemen, there is something deeply noble and sadly tragic about the way responsibility can become invisible, especially when it is taken on quietly, without any fanfare, without praise, and without expecting either. And nowhere is this more clearly true than in the life of a woman who carries the weight of responsibility and finds herself alone with that burden. Not just alone in action, but alone in recognition. She becomes, in a way, a ghost of labor. Her efforts blend into the daily fabric of life. Her sacrifices are mistaken for something normal. Her strength is mistaken for ease. What many people don't realize is that responsibility is not just about doing tasks. It is about holding up reality itself, piece by piece, moment by moment. It's about managing chaos before it breaks through the cracks. It's about waking up at 3 a.m. to comfort a child, going to work exhausted, preparing dinner, keeping the emotional balance of a family alive. It's about managing 1,000 moving parts so that the people around her can function, so that the machine of life can keep running. And if she does this well enough, no one notices. In fact, the true sign of her success is her invisibility. No breakdowns, no crises, just the calm surface she fights hard to keep. This is the cruel paradox. The more capable she is, the more invisible her effort becomes. People start to assume the world just works this way. That the meals appear by themselves, the laundry folds on its own. The emotional work of listening and supporting simply happens. There's no applause for being reliable. There's no standing ovation for consistency. People only cheer for the one who puts out the fire, not for the one who prevented it. And over time, that invisibility begins to wear down the soul. Because we are social beings. We are wired, biologically and psychologically, to want recognition, not for vanity, but for meaning. When our work is noticed, it tells us it mattered. When we are seen, we feel we exist. And when that is taken away from someone who has given everything, her energy, her time, her youth, her body, her heart, the result is not just exhaustion. It's a kind of deep wearing away of the self. She begins to ask quietly, often only to herself, does any of this matter? Does anyone even see me? And that is a dangerous place to be, because when meaning fades, resentment can slowly creep in. Not the kind that shouts or lashes out, but the kind that sinks in like rot. Quiet, desperate, deep inside. It's not that she wants praise or glory. It's that she needs, at the most human level, to know that her effort is not taken for granted. That her suffering has weight, that her love shown daily in action is not just expected, but valued. In fact, truly valued. I have seen this happen in clinical work more times than I can count. A woman comes in, not because of one big event, but because of a slow collapse. She has been carrying a load for 10, 20, sometimes 30 years, and now suddenly or inevitably, it feels like too much, and she doesn't understand why. Nothing changed. But that is exactly the problem. Nothing ever changes. No one notices. And so she finds herself alone, not just physically, but psychologically, existentially, in a life that looks fine on the surface but feels like drowning underneath. This is why I say responsibility is a moral act. It is sacred. And when someone carries it, especially when they carry it quietly, steadily, and alone, that deserves the highest kind of respect. Not just thanks, but reverence. Because it is in those unseen acts that civilization holds together, that children grow up with safety, that homes stay places of peace, that the vulnerable are cared for. If we, as a society, cannot learn to see the unseen, to thank those who carry the burden, not because they must, but because they choose to, then we risk losing the very people who keep us together. And if we lose them, we lose something irreplaceable, the quiet strength on which everything else rests. Human beings are not meant to live in isolation. We are social creatures wired biologically to thrive in groups, tribes, families, neighborhoods. For thousands of years, community wasn't just a nice option, it was necessary for survival. People raised children together, shared food, passed down wisdom, helped each other in sickness or hard times. And more importantly, they were known. They had a place. Their joys and their pain were not invisible. But in the modern world, much of that has disappeared. We have traded connectedness for independence, shared duties for personal freedom. We have broken up the extended family, moved far from our roots, and replaced face-to-face talks with digital bits of communication. We have never been more connected, and yet many people, especially women who carry the emotional and practical load of family life, feel more alone than ever. And loneliness, it turns out, is not just a feeling. It is a mental state that eats away at the soul. It deepens depression, increases anxiety, and raises the chance of illness and even death. It is, in a very real way, deadly. Now think about the woman trying to raise children alone, or holding her family together when everyone else is emotionally distant or physically gone. In a strong community, she might have a sister next door to help with the kids, a neighbor who notices when she is overwhelmed, a church group that brings meals without being asked, or elders who give advice. But today, she's told to be strong, to do it all, to figure it out herself. And when she struggles, she's often told it's her own fault, not a problem with the culture or community. This is the lie we have sold to modern people, especially women, that self-reliance is the highest value and needing help is a weakness. We say, you can do anything, which is true in one way, but we twist it into, you must do everything and do it alone. That is not freedom. That is abandonment hidden as empowerment. The fall of community has left women to fight battles once shared with others. A newborn used to be welcomed by a circle of women who shared caretaking. Now a mother is often left tired and anxious, scrolling the internet at 3 a.m. searching for answers to problems once solved through shared wisdom. A single mother juggling work and parenting often has no backup, no one to lean on. A woman going through illness or emotional breakdown might have no one to call, or worse, she might feel guilty for asking. And here is the painful truth. This isolation is often invisible. From outside, everything may look fine. The house is clean. The kids are dressed. She is showing up to work. But underneath is a silent falling apart. And because there is no community to see it, no one steps in. What does that do to a person over time? It builds quiet despair. It deepens the feeling that no one is coming, that she must just keep going forever. And it creates resentment, not angry or mean, but the aching kind that whispers, why is all this on me? Where is everyone? That resentment doesn't make her weak. It makes her human. In the absence of community, we have tried to make substitutes: social media, parenting blogs, group chats. And while these can offer brief connections, they are a poor copy of what we really need. People in the same room, people who come without being asked, people who see us in our real moments of need. We don't just need sympathy. We need closeness. We need help with the dishes, a hand on the shoulder, someone to pick up the kids when we're too sick to drive. We need each other. We need everyone. If we want to rebuild what we have lost, we have to start by recognizing that isolation is not strength and community is not a luxury. It is a lifeline. We must value presence over performance, depth over appearance, connection over convenience. And we have to relearn the lost art of showing up, even when it's awkward, even when we're busy, even when no one asks. Because somewhere nearby, a woman is fighting a silent battle. And while you might not be able to take it from her, you can make sure she doesn't fight alone. There is a cultural story told today, especially to women, that sounds empowering on the surface. It says, you are strong. You are resilient. You can do anything. And these are not lies. They are partly true. But like all half-truths, when left unexamined, they distort reality. They demand rather than support. What we have quietly changed that message into is this: you must do everything. You must never break down. You must carry every weight, smile through every burden, and never ask for help. This is the myth of endless strength. It sounds noble, but it is a trap. Women today are expected to be everything at once: successful, caring, independent, emotionally available, physically attractive, productive, self-sufficient, endlessly composed. Endlessly composed. She is supposed to raise children as if she doesn't have a job, and work as if she doesn't have children. She must be soft enough to soothe everyone, and tough enough to carry their expectations without breaking. And if she struggles, cries, or says, I can't do this right now, she risks being seen as weak, dramatic, or failing to live up to her potential. But let's be honest, no one can carry all that without breaking under the weight. When a woman begins to break, when the tiredness becomes too much, when the endless pressure can't be hidden anymore, the world often looks at her with confusion. What happened? She seemed to have it all together. But she didn't. She just got very good at pretending, because we taught her that her value lies in never needing, only giving. And here is the danger of that myth. It separates a person from her own vulnerability. It makes her believe that feeling tired, lost, or scared means she has failed. But vulnerability is not weakness. It is the root of honesty. It is the acceptance of our limits. And paradoxically, the place where true strength begins. Because only when you know your limits can you protect your soul from being worn down. Only when you can say you are tired can you ask for rest. Only when you say, this is too much, can the load be shared. Endless strength is not strength. It is a lie. A lie that leads to burnout, despair, and the slow death of joy. Worse, it isolates. When everyone thinks you are unbreakable, no one thinks to ask if you are okay. They assume you don't need help. They assume you are fine because you always seem so. So your pain becomes invisible. Your suffering is kept inside. And your silence is mistaken for peace. I have sat with many women in clinical settings who carry a quiet shame. Shame that they are struggling. Shame they feel angry, empty, or exhausted. I know this well. Time and again, what I see is not weakness. I see strength that was taken for granted, stretched too thin, never allowed to rest. I see someone who was everyone's anchor but now feels like she's drifting away. That is not a failure of character. That is a human being in pain caught in a system that expects her to be more than human. So how do we start to break down this myth? First, by telling the truth. By saying out loud that no one can do it all, that it is okay to rest, that it is okay to not be okay. That asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but an act of courage. Second, we must create places, in families, workplaces, communities, where people can be whole. Not just the strong, productive parts of themselves, but the tired, overwhelmed, unsure parts too. Because that is where real connection happens, where masks come off and honesty is welcomed. And finally, we must stop measuring worth by what someone produces. A woman is not valuable because of how much she does. She is valuable because she simply is. Her dignity is not earned by hiding her pain. It is a right she has by being human. True strength is not how much you can carry. It is knowing when to put things down. It is choosing what really matters. It is refusing to let the world decide your worth by your usefulness. And it is being brave enough to say, I need help. And wise enough to know that asking might just save your life. There is a truth about life that we try to avoid, especially in our modern world where comfort and distraction are easy to find. That truth is this: life is suffering. It always has been. If you live long enough, you will face tragedy that breaks your soul open. You will grieve. You will feel lost. You will carry burdens that make you doubt your strength. You will face days, maybe years, where just going on feels like a fight. This is not being negative. It is the raw truth of being human. But it is inside that very reality, inside suffering, that the door to healing opens. Because while we cannot always avoid pain, we can choose how to respond to it. And that choice, even if it seems small, is where meaning begins. Meaning, at its deepest, is not found in pleasure, ease, or success. It is found in facing chaos and taking responsibility for it. It is born when we stop asking, how do I escape this pain? And start asking, what is this pain asking of me? And this is maybe the bravest act of all. To look directly at the hard parts of your life, the loneliness, betrayal, exhaustion, the heavy weight, and say, I will not be defeated by this. I will build something from it. Think of the woman who feels alone, abandoned even by those closest, who wakes every morning with a long list of demands and no one to help, who moves through her day invisible, her pain unseen. She could grow bitter, give up, fall into despair. But somehow, through sheer will, through a spark of hopeful defiance, she keeps going. She cares for her children. She shows up at work. She makes dinner. She holds space for others even when she has none left for herself. That is meaning. That is heroism. Because in that persistence, she chooses to turn her pain into order, into love, into something steady, even sacred. She wrestles the chaos of life into shape, not because she must, but because she chooses to. And in that choice, she says something deep, that the world is worth facing, even when it hurts. There is something noble, even healing, about doing what must be done, not because anyone will applaud, but because it is right. Meaning redeems suffering not by ending it, but by giving it purpose. And that purpose doesn't have to be grand or poetic. Sometimes it is as simple as keeping a promise. Sometimes it is getting out of bed when every part of you wants to give up. Sometimes it is telling the truth when silence is easier. Sometimes it is holding a child, making a meal, placing one brick where chaos once ruled. There is something beyond words in that, choosing to carry the unbearable for something bigger than yourself. It is in those moments that we touch the eternal. That we start to understand what it truly means to be human, not just a bundle of needs and feelings, but a conscious being who can choose meaning over meaninglessness, order over chaos, love over bitterness. This is not an easy path. But it is the only one worth taking. So to the woman who feels unseen, know this: your choice to carry on is not foolish. It is not meaningless. It is a deeply moral act, a statement that your pain will not be the end of you. That you are more than what has happened to you. And by choosing meaning again and again, you are shaping not just your soul, but the world around you. And to those of us who watch, let us learn to see that kind of strength. Let us not praise perfection, but honor endurance. Let us not seek comfort, but courage. Because in the quiet, daily, often unnoticed decision to choose meaning over despair, we find the true foundation of human dignity. In the end, it is not avoiding suffering that saves us. It is redeeming it.